What's going on, everybody? You've got the cardboard coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, we've got a very special guest on the podcast here today. We've got Eric MONACELLI. Did I get that right?
You did. You got that right.
Excellent. Well, and he is a senior director and product and franchise development at Marvel. I'm very excited to have him on. Because we're actually going to talk about baseball cards today. We are going to dive into your position at Marvel a little bit,
sure.
Just as like a backstory. But we're talking baseball cards today, and I'm super excited about it. Eric's a big time collector, and this is just like a natural crossover that I feel like is just
it's aligning. Yes,
exactly.
We're assembling here. They're assembling in these two hobbies, right?
I like that. I like that. Assembling, Marvel, we're good.
You got it.
Talk to me a little bit about what does it mean to be the senior director of like product development at Marvel?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the video games industry, so I work on the video game side of thing, and I've been in the industry for about 18 years. And what it means to be senior director of product development and franchise, especially for me, is it means like I got to make sure that everything we put out from our developers, the team we work with, and how closely we work with them. I call ourselves creative collaborators. So we collaborate with these teams creatively to put out like the most authentic, true Marvel games possible. And that's my job. That's like the highest level way of thinking about it. And being in games for 18 years, I've gotten pretty good at knowing what games are good at this point. So
yeah,
I like to work with teams that really want to make awesome superhero games, and that's what we do.
Brother, you had a pretty large role in The Last of Us, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was at Naughty Dog when The Last of Us was in its genesis and sort of coming out. I have so many stories from that day, but like the one thing I remember the most and really stuck out with me is like when we were first talking about Last of Us. This was like 2011, so more than a decade ago now. The Walking Dead was huge, right?
Huge.
Like that was massive, right? It was right when that first TV series had come out, and everybody was like, "Oh, you guys are just doing a Walking Dead clone. This is nothing worth it." And then now you look at The Last of Us now, and it's just like completely different thing. So I love that team. Love working on that project with a lot of the folks there, and everybody put their heart and soul into that. Working with Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann and all those guys was awesome. So.
Can we talk about the little Easter egg you left in the game?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I didn't leave it. It was a thing. So they put out a studio-wide call for this is very common in video games, right?
Yeah.
So like if you want to decorate art, like typically, I have behind me here, like you'd have to get rights to it if you wanted to put it in the game. That's actually a Last of Us print I have behind me there. But getting the rights to that is like this whole legal process and things like that. So sometimes they'll put out like studio-wide calls, or publishers or whoever you're working with in the games industry will be like, "Hey, we need to have some pictures and art in the game. Do you have anything?" And so one of the artists, her name was Heather, put out this call and was like, "Hey, we need some family portrait stuff." So they actually put out a call, and I had this picture from a wedding with my ex-wife, where it was me, my ex-wife, and my little dog in a photo. And so that photo actually got put into The Last of Us in the 2013 release of The Last of Us, and it's pretty funny. And I haven't verified myself, but somebody told me for the remaster, the new one, they actually took the photo out, which I joked about it because like I'm not married anymore. Like that's actually fitting, but it may still be in there. I haven't verified it, but it's pretty great. And I had joked to my buddies who still work there. I had texted them when they were doing the remaster. I was like, "Could you take the photo out?" So maybe they listened to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, it's one of those things. It's not even like a bitter thing. It was just like a joke, and like it's all good. But it's a nice little piece of history. It's cool. Like I'm part of that world. My biggest thing to sort of transition into the thing that I think is the coolest Easter egg. So the team at Insomniac Games was super kind to me. And we were reading one of the scripts, we were reviewing one of the scripts, and there was a baseball player in it. And they know how much I love baseball. And when we were thinking about it, we were like, do we get the licensing rights? Do we do it a real player, that sort of thing? And, there's a big cost involved there. So we decided, hey, it'd be better to just make a fictional player, and they're like, why don't you just use Eric? And so they actually put me in the game. So if you play Marvel Spider-Man 2 and you get into this one sequence, it's the flashback sequence when Peter Parker and Harry Osborn are in the high school. If you listen to the radio, the janitor is actually listening to play-by-play, and the janitor is called Right Field Rick because he's like a baseball fan, and
Yeah.
it's the play-by-play, and I'm a huge Mets fan, and I'm a rookie on the Mets in the world of Marvel Spider-Man 2, and that's like the coolest Easter egg. I can't thank the team enough, and like that was my dream. I wanted to be a baseball player when I was growing up, and so at least fictionally, I am somewhere now.
I love that, man. I
Yeah,
absolutely love that. Dude,
nice.
so let's talk about this love of baseball. Where does it come from? And, how are you finding ways to fulfill it now that you're in video games? I mean, aside
Yeah,
from getting Easter eggs.
yeah. I mean, the Easter, I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
Like after reading the script, like I thought it would, like we joked I should be in there, and then they were like, "No, it's actually a good idea. We're gonna do it." And it was. I actually got to meet the writer who put me in, and thanked her a lot, and it was super cool. But
I love that.
I think my love from baseball comes from actually my father's side of the family. So my father, his father was part of the Knights of Columbus, and they were like this organization that it's kind of like the veteran of foreign wars sort of thing, where they would get together and talk, and they had been through some stuff in the 50s and 40s and 30s and whatnot. And so the Knights of Columbus, this was up in Albion, New York. They would put on these night, like they would call them, like I don't remember exactly what they would call them, but they would have ball players come over and travel through town. And so when I was growing up as a kid, I would go over to my grandparents' basement, and like down the hall, if you walk down the stairs, were all these signed autograph photos of like Brooks Robinson, Hank Aaron, like just big stars from the 70s, 50s, 60s, like all this sort of stuff. And some minor stars too. And so I started to dig into it. My grandfather actually had a Mickey Mantle signed baseball, like all this stuff. Yeah, it was wild. And so like all this stuff was just in my history. And I found out that my great uncle, so my great great uncle, I guess, my dad's great uncle, was like a bullpen catcher for the 27 Yankees, like played with that. So it's just been in my blood. Like my family's always grown up playing it. My father tried out for minor league ball, didn't get on the team, but like he played baseball for a while. I played baseball for a while. My brother, all of us did. So it's just been something that's been passed on, and that love for generations. And like I think my fondest memories growing up were just like in my backyard hitting baseballs and playing catch with my brother. That's what I love doing. So I've wanted to do it forever, and I continually fulfill it. And I started collecting when I was 5. Like my dad had a bunch of cards, so I collect baseball cards. But the set I remember most is 1987 Topps. Remember the border on those?
Yeah.
Yeah, the wood grain border. So I have
Yeah.
a really nostalgic spot for those. And then I grew up near Canada, so I was actually like in Western New York, so kind of near Buffalo, and I would go to Toronto all the time. And so in Toronto, yeah, there we go. Your own time, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
in Toronto, they had O-Pee-Chee, and O-Pee-Chee was like this weird, like offshoot thing. Like I still don't understand. Was it like a marketing thing for Topps? Do you know the history of it? Or
I'm not even sure, man. Like I think
okay,
yeah, I think they were just printed in two different countries, and like so they were like just released because like Canadians were used to O-Pee-Chee,
yeah,
and so I guess that they just continued that release throughout
okay.
baseball and hockey.
Hockey too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. Because I remember looking for cards, and I was like, "What's this O-Pee-Chee thing? I've never heard of it." And like when I was up there, we would, the American dollar was super strong in those days, so like
Yeah.
we travel up there to. My dad would take advantage of that, and so like we'd do some vacations, and so like I remember collecting O-Pee-Chee cards from the 86 and 87 and 88, 89 tops, and it was just something that stuck with me. I got the whole 80. That was the first set I ever completed. Was the 1987 Topps. I think Greg Maddox had his rookie, and then Bonds had the
Yeah.
rookie. And there was a Bo Jackson card there too,
Yeah.
and so like those cards were like super super meaningful to me. And since then it just has continued, and I've never really stopped. I like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna buy any more boxes. I'm not gonna pay for cards, but no, it never lasts. Never lasts.
Are you a set collector? Like I know that it started as set collecting, but has it continued?
Yeah, kind of like in a weird way. Like, I have this on my desk, so this is the
Yeah.
first card I'll show.
Show
Like,
and
so
tell is the best.
this is the Project 2020. Remember the
Yes.
top of this for a little while. So
Yeah.
I ended up collecting a lot of Project 2020 because we were all locked inside,
Yep.
right? And it was just like, and I thought they were really cool, and I jumped on super early. Like I got the first one. I think that was the Ichiro was the first card, and then they did the Ermsey Trout and that sort of thing. So I only collected a couple of them. And then that set just like hit this bubble, and I was like, man, I got to get all these. And then I was like, man, this is going to be really expensive to collect all of them. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it. So that was the last time I attempted to do a set. But like I have Project 70, so this is my Lindor card from Project 70, and then my Otani for Project 100. So I do look at different sets to see like, okay, what's the coolest card from each of them. But I would love to one day, like if there's a card design I love, there are a couple, like I said, the 87 tops is super nostalgic, and then the 2000, what is it, 13 5-star tops is
Nice.
yeah, that's a gorgeous one. So maybe one day I'll go back and try and assemble at 87 tops and maybe the 2013 5-star. Those might be the two that I really love the look and feel of. For some reason, they're both brown color. I don't know, like the dirt
That's
of baseball. Yeah,
yeah. The
yeah.
2013 is oddly specific. Like, is there any particular reason? Is that like you need to jump back into collecting or
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I actually did kind of phase out a little bit, and I got really back into it when Trout got into the league, right? Like, I was a huge fan of when I moved across the country. I've always been a Mets fan, but
yeah.
moving here, like especially in that decade, I read about Trout. He was just the man. I loved everything about him, and so my brother actually, he went down. He had lived in Orange County, and so he went to a mall, and Oakley was doing a signing with him, and it
Yeah.
was like before he was even remotely famous. Like people were like, okay, this kid may be good, he may be not. And my brother got me like a signed baseball that's an Oakley baseball, and then like a signed photo of Trout from that signing where he still signed with the 27 and did it,
Yeah.
in a different signature style. And
Yeah.
so that really got me into it. And so that was right around 2011. So by the time Trout got really good, 2013 was that year. And so one of the funny things is 2000, I had a one of one Trout 5-star card. It was a auto booklet. So it
Yeah.
was a patch relic and autograph. Gorgeous card. And I bought it in 2013 with my bonus money for shipping The Last of Us. So
Nice.
I had like this weird analogy of like,
Yeah.
hey, I put out this cool game. And then I bought the card with the bonus money, and it was like it meant a lot to me. And then as I moved on and my life changed and stuff, I sold the card because I made a little profit on it. And then I regretted selling the card, and I contacted the person I sold it to, and I bought it back.
Did you?
Yep, and I bought it back and I have it. And then I had it for a little while, and then for some reason I was like, I need to sell this card again. And then I sold it to somebody in Florida, and I know that person, and I've asked them multiple times to sell it, and they're like, nope, not selling it. So it was right. I sold it twice. So like I made profit on it twice, but like I also regret selling it that last time because it was right when the bubble hit. So like,
Yeah.
and everything, but or the boom hit, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. So like 2019, I sold it, and
Yeah.
now it's probably worth way more than I can
For
reasonably pay for it.
for
But
sure.
yeah.
And like
But
a relic from 2013 probably means that it was like something he used in like 2012 or like 2011. You
yeah,
know what I
and one
mean?
of his
So
great,
like,
yeah, 2012, which
yeah.
arguably is greatest season ever. So like
Yeah.
it was a great. It was three patches and its signature. I have a photo of it, but I don't have the card. Obviously, I'm very sad about that.
He's devastated.
But yeah, it's like it's like I want to feel good because I'm like, oh, I made profit on it. It's fine. Like, but like, it's just that nostalgia, like that connection to like I shipped this really cool game, and then all that. And so like, if the person out here listens to this podcast and would like to sell it to me for a reasonable price, let's talk. But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. He's put it out
yeah,
there. I
yeah,
love that.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? We that's what collecting's kind of all about. Is like developing these like relationships with these inanimate objects, and we tie them to specific events, and like
Yep.
there's a lot of cards that I own that I mean aren't very valuable, truthfully. So like they're not
Yeah.
in the same, like we're not talking about one of one trouts, but they definitely mean something to me, whether that's like someone gave them to me or the manner in which I acquired it, or like I can recall the time in my life where I was like watching this person play and it was before anyone else really knew they existed, you know, like so there's always, and I think that's our way of you know, almost creating moments in time and like
Yeah.
really preserving those moments in time.
I always talk about it like we all have that fear of loss, right?
Yeah.
Like you're afraid you're losing something. So cards help fight, you know, like they capture that moment, they encapsulate it, right? Like this is a Josh Gibson card that this guy named Digital Opticals, I guess, drew. It was
Yeah.
2001, and I remember just talking to it, and it's not even tops or anything. It's just
Yeah.
a unique one. And Josh Gibson's one of my favorite players of all time, and you know, I just thought it was such a cool image and and it preserves that moment of like when I was reaching out and connecting with people digitally, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I couldn't go outside. We were all trapped inside. And so it just has certain meanings to me. And I have a ton of cards back there that like, you know, I collect, I like cards with dogs. So this is my trout with the dog card.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool. I
yeah,
love
it's just
that.
cool. And it's a, you know, I got a PSA 10 on this one because it was cheap, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't expensive at the time. And
Yeah.
then I got the Otani one where with his with decoy, I got that in PSA 10 too. And so like, you know, I like just those moments where like ball players look human, right? Like they're not these like and it just that's another thing, like not only preserving that fear of loss and helping you remember those moments in time, and like you say, preserve those memories, but also just like these human intimate portraits of like your heroes, right? So
Yeah, no, I mean that's I love that. I love the dog. I mean, I've never
yeah,
heard that yet.
yeah, and it's just literally I was like, cool. And no, I got a Nolan Ryan. He's petting his dog on the farm. It's a Stadium Club. Stadium Club is one of my other favorite. Because yeah, it's beautiful, right?
Beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Honestly, it's probably the most underrated like set. Yeah, it's
really.
like because it's not flagship, it doesn't get the same love, but the imagery on it is just incredible. Like there's some photos that I will never forget because
Yep.
they're like they're just stunning photos on Stadium Club.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It drives me nuts that I mean, it doesn't drive me nuts sometimes because I can afford it, but like it's
Well,
one of
that's
the
exactly it, right?
yeah, it's like one of
Yeah,
it's one of the cheaper cards to buy, but it's like these are such cool like you never see them, and it's funny because I've spent when they reissued it, I think I can't remember, was it 2016? I
I
can't
think
remember.
so. I think so.
Some remember 14, somewhere around there, right? I remember it wasn't Trout's rookie year because he doesn't have a Stadium Club rookie card.
Yeah,
So it was somewhere after 2011. And so um I was looking, you know, I for a while I was collecting like every variant, every Trout, and it's like there's too many cards. I can't do that for Stadium Club. So I stopped doing that. But I got really, you know, all my Mets cards started coming out, and I was a huge 1986 Mets fan because that's when I first realized my love of baseball and collecting
yeah,
and stuff as a kid. And there's a Doc Gooden photo of him like at Shea, and he's just throwing a ball in the air. And they used it like a couple years ago, and then they used it again in this year's set. And I was like, why did they use the same photo
yeah,
twice?
yeah.
But you know, it's one of those things where I'm just like, those images more than any other card are like burned in my mind because they're just so cool. So
Yeah, there's a Jose Bautista like bat flip. I think it's from like
mm,
2018 maybe.
yeah,
And it's like one of those cards where it's like a base, it's a base card. Do you know what I mean? But like it's the price on it is like much higher than the average base card because of like what that photo means to like the people of Toronto. It's like kind of
yeah.
crazy
Oh,
actually.
yeah, that's the epic bat flip. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's yeah, I mean imagery definitely doesn't get talked about enough, especially in like this climate where a lot of it has to do with like values, like actual like comps or stuff of that nature where you're like,
Scarcity. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. And you know, it's refreshing to have conversations about imagery and about like collecting, I mean truly for different reasons. Like so I guess my next question is like do you dabble in like ultra modern stuff? Do you worry about comps? Like is that
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I collect really just for the that visual fidelity and like the sense of, you know, I really love art and I'm into like that sort of stuff too. And you know, it's this is a little tangent, but I'll get back to my main point.
no, that's okay.
So there's
We like tangents.
okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
talk very discursively, so we'll get
That's
there.
okay.
But there's the artist named Craig Kindler, and I've worked for him. I've worked with him on multiple different art. So there was a painting he did a while ago of the trout catch from when he robbed JJ Hardy.
Yeah.
And actually, that was my painting, and I commissioned it from him. I wanted it in 2012, and I couldn't connect with him. But then through the magical mystery tour that was the COVID pandemic, we reconnected digitally, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you emailing my agent about that. Like, let's do this painting now, 7 years later." And so it took a while. He got the painting done and got it made, and it's just a beautiful work of art. And like, he's one of the best painters out there. Him and Kadir Nelson are probably the premier, and Craig, I would argue, is the best baseball painter out there. And him and I have become friends, and I commissioned some other stuff from him. He did a Jackie Robinson piece, and he has this rule where he doesn't like to do things off cards because he wants like a more, he loves light, and he wants imagery that is more like, he bases a lot of his stuff on photography. But
Yeah.
cards have, getting back to the point, is like, there are some images from cards that are just so remarkable that, like, Trout's 2011 update image, right? Like him in that throwback Angels
Yeah.
uniform, like it's the one from this Project 2020 card,
Yeah.
right? Like that is the Trout that everybody will think of. Like he's throwback player playing in that era, that sort of thing. So I tend to look for that sort of stuff. Like if I'm collecting vintage or modern, like I'll look at the image and like, is this a cool design? Is it not? That sort of thing. And I'll kind of look at the design and different elements in the card and the art and the photography and even the borders and
Yeah.
stuff. And I collect based on, and dogs obviously is another thing I
Yeah.
look for. They did the 2024 set has that Kevin Hart thing.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious, and I'm like, this is silly, but it's also hilarious. I kind of love how limited it is. If they ever did one with like little dogs or something, I was like, that would be the thing. That would be it for me. Like I play
Game
it.
over.
Game
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
A lot of people are like really not happy about the Kevin Hart stuff. I
Yeah.
think it's funny. Not first of all, I think it's funny that so many people are unhappy about it. They're limited to 52.
Exactly.
So like,
And they're
what's the chance?
Phillies only, right?
What's the chance of you even hitting one?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, let's all calm down here.
Yeah.
Like it's first of all. Secondly, if you hit one and you don't like it, just sell it. I promise there's
Yep.
probably a massive premium on it. So like, it's very,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's
Well,
very simple.
yeah, when the taco fractors came out too, I was very much like, this is ridiculous. Like and then they announced what they were actually about, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
a long game.
Yeah.
And it gets into like a different reason for collecting and the chase and all that. They had what were they, the frozen factors and all those other
Yes.
stuff that
Yeah.
that that ended up. And isn't the Kevin Hart Phillies players only too?
Only Phillies because he's
Yeah,
from
which is it's
Philadelphia.
like,
Yeah,
I'm never gonna collect the Phillies because I'm a Mets
that's
fan. So
that's
like,
exactly it.
like if I get one, I'll laugh at it and then I'll sell it.
That's
So,
exactly it. That's
yeah,
exactly it, right? Like,
yeah,
and I don't know. I think that in them doing that is they're really kind of leaning into niche collecting, which
yeah.
I think we actually need in
Agreed.
this climate, right? So many people are collecting what everyone else is collecting, and
Yeah,
you often see like with a new set release or someone talks about a quarterback like Sam Howell or whatever, like there's like a massive kind of wave that goes in like another direction, and
yeah.
in instances like this, and same thing with the Tops last year did like the super short printed like big bobbleheads.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
Right? Like, and again, like doesn't appeal to a lot of people, but like the people it does appeal to really like that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And they like how niche it is. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. Like I don't, if it's not meant for you, then just pass it on to the person that it's meant for. Like I actually think that that's how the hobby, like the cohesion in the hobby really works, is that like if you pull a card that doesn't really mean anything to you but it has value, then you sell it, and then the person who's meant to acquire it ends up acquiring it. Like it's
I 100% agree with that. And that's part of it. I remember as a kid, I remember pulling certain cards and trading them, like when you
yeah,
actually would swap. And it's like,
yeah,
that's the cool thing. It's like, I don't like Daryl Strawberry. Oh, I do love Daryl Strawberry. But
yeah.
like, like I was like, yeah, it doesn't. But like I remember my friend being like, I don't like Daryl Strawberry, but I know you do, Eric. So like, do you have a, Tony Gwynn card you can trade me for? And I was like, yeah, sure. I like
Yeah,
Tony Gwynn, but I like Daryl more. So like,
yeah,
trade. And I feel like that should just be like, why get offended? Just
Yeah.
like, it is what it is, you know?
And
So,
I think that's one positive to like all these like the breakers and the ripping of like
yeah,
countless boxes and stuff is that like the more boxes that get ripped, the more of these cards are essentially on the secondary market, and the more opportunity that there is for a collector who actually wants to enjoy those cards to acquire them. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Versus like them
yep,
sitting in boxes
right.
for a
Decades.
year or 2 years
Yeah,
or decades, right? Like, and potentially never being found, right?
yeah,
Just think of how quickly we find super short prints these days. Like
I know.
that Kevin Hart thing, number to 52, we found out in a day, and
Yeah,
it wasn't on any checklist, you know. So
yep.
yeah, I don't know. There's always like positives and negatives for everything, and I mean, unfortunately, the negative voices are always like the loudest. But
Yeah, no, yeah, that's I mean, I face that in gaming industry a lot. And so, but
yeah,
like, I think that, yeah, for the hobby too, it's a similar thing where I feel like, yeah, it's an issue. I didn't think about that too much with breaking because that's the big thing. Like I know that there's certain cards that I've always chased that like, yeah, I probably wouldn't even see unless there was a breaker that existed. So I do hate the wave of things like
yeah,
Otani cards just got ridiculous for a little while, right?
no,
Like it was like right after he signed with the Dodgers, that it was just like, why are these this huge? Like he's not even playing. Like he's
yeah,
hurt. Like we don't even know if he's going to pitch again. Like why are his cards spiking? Right? Like
yeah,
I get it on some level, but like that's the one thing that I do. I don't know how you mitigate that or change that, but like I think that's just the nature of the hobby, and it's always going to be that way. Where like some of those cards get like outsized price. Like I saw a recent card, like a I think it was a Transcendent Otani, the 101, gorgeous card, like
yeah.
52 card design, 52 tops. So it was beautiful, but like the guy was asking 400K for it. And I was like, maybe if the next 10 years of his career are great, yes. But right now, like, you're reaching,
Yeah,
buddy.
but think about how many one of ones exist, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so I don't know. I think that it'll never go away. I mean, I think that that wave has been taking place forever.
yeah,
I just think the difference is like now social media just makes it like a lot more apparent, you know? Because like
yeah,
think about it, a guy has a massive game, and like the next day, like like all of a sudden, even I mean, I know this is the way that it is. I mean, we have Austin Matthews as a hockey player. He scored a hat trick yesterday, and
yeah,
I can't lie. Like part of me was like, I feel like I need to acquire something, like, or
yeah,
you know, like are we witnessing history, or you know, like how great is this guy gonna be? Like all these performances kind of like add to the narrative, and there's inevitably like a knee jerk reaction that happens after that, right? So I don't think it'll ever go away. I just think that as a in order for you to acquire what you, I mean, truly like, I think the best thing you can do is just like take a breath in those moments and like just wait it out. You know what I mean? Just
yeah,
like wait for people to stop talking about this guy, wait for off season, wait for, you know, when people start shitting on them and you're like, listen, this is
yep,
when I'm gonna buy, right? Like I remember the Otani run up. I mean, when this stuff first came out, like even I wasn't really into cards, and like I heard chatter, and
okay,
like he's like the next, you know, like it's not that I wasn't into cards. Like I wasn't like fully into the market. I still heard
yeah,
chatter. And it's like, well, this guy's the next two-way, he's the next, you know, Babe Ruth, whatever. And then he got hurt and his stuff just absolutely plummeted, right? And like those people who bought when he got hurt, like those are the people that were eating it up.
yeah,
And so I feel like if you just if you know the player and you're willing to take a risk, that's the difference. The difference is like Mahomes just won a Super Bowl. His stuff's probably going to go up, or like to a certain point. And I mean, every time that these people acquire accolades, it just gets harder and harder to acquire their stuff.
yeah. No, I agree with that. I feel like the toughest it's the waiting part, like LED,
Yeah.
like that's he's the best example of it. It's like he was he's good and he might be great, but like taking the time to like think about it and think about like if he's actually gonna, pop off and not rushing into just buying one of his cards is like probably the smarter move. Because like all his cards right now in the 24 tops designs are like those are the most expensive cards, and I was like, should they be?
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah. No,
I get
I
yeah,
agree with you. Talk
yeah.
to me about some of the other stuff you collect. So you collect baseball cards. I mean, we briefly touched on your autograph. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if you have any autographs, but grandpa definitely had autographs. So like
I
I
mean,
feel like that transitioned into you a little bit.
yeah, I did for a little while. So like I wanted to get like signed photos for a while, but then I realized, like I move a lot and I'm pretty restless as a human. So I'm like, I I can't, like, they're too big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like cards are portable, and that's kind of something I love about them. And then also too, it's a slippery slope. But I do, I used to collect basketball cards a little bit, but I kind of stopped that in my teenage years. I do have a lot of collection of like just memorabilia. Like the pizza box you see behind me is actually a
Yeah.
prop from Disneyland. So if you go on the web ride, I was shown the web ride a little early. I work on our Marvel Spider-Man stuff a lot, our games, and so they showed the ride early. And one of the Imagineers knew. I told him I saw the pizza box. I was like, I love Lucky the pizza dog. It's my whole
Yeah.
dog. And he's like, "Oh, I can get you a box." And like, it literally took. The ride opened, and this was 2 years after I initially saw the ride. The ride opened, and we're like at this opening day, and I'm sitting down at a table, and I was like, "I wonder if Jeff still has that box for me." And he's standing behind me, and he's like, "Hey,"
Oh, what?
he's like, "I do have that box. It's in my car." And I was like, "Holy shit, okay." And so I ended up getting a box, and Jeffrey Albert, he's an awesome Imagineer, one of the great Disney Imagineers there, and he basically was able to give me the box. And it's a replica of the prop that if you go into the ride, you'll see it in the middle of like all of Peter Parker's stuff. So that sort of stuff I like to collect, the stuff that has meaning to me. I collect I have my brother works in aerospace, and so I collect some space mission stuff.
I
That sort
love that. What kind
Yeah.
of stuff were you talking about?
Like mission patches and then mission pins. So like,
Love that.
yeah, he worked on the Mars rover, and so like a lot of the Perseverance and that sort of thing. I have some of those. But and then baseballs themselves. I have Otani, and I have a fake Jackie Robinson, which one someday that's like my grail. If I can ever afford an actual Jackie Robinson baseball, that would be like the greatest thing ever. But those are just insane right now
Yeah.
in terms of price. But I
Yeah.
have a fake signed one. And then I have Trout and Curtis Granderson, who's one of my favorite players, and that's another one. Like Curtis Granderson, amazing baseball player, but you can get his cards for like nothing because
I
like
know.
people just don't respect it, right? And it's
No.
just so interesting. But and then what else is there? I'm a collector by nature, right? Like even when I'm playing video games, like if there's a bunch of little digital things in the game, I'm like, I gotta get everything, like Zelda or anything like that. I'm like, okay, I gotta get every piece of equipment and everything you can use. So it's just always been a part of like who I was. But yeah, baseballs and baseball cards have become like the main thing. I had a little bit of a comic book collection too, just because of the Marvel thing, but
Yeah.
mainly that's like very specific, like comic book issues that mean a lot to me. So there's only like 5 to 10 I have. So yeah.
I love that. It's funny. A lot of these conversations I have with people, there's always like crossover. There's always like they collect multiple things. Like
Yeah.
I had someone on the podcast talked about like their rubber ducky collection. Like they collect baseball cards, but like they were like, every state I've been in, like I just grab a rubber ducky, and it's just like
Yes.
something, and I'm like that is unbelievable. Like I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, it's like it's always been jerseys for me, and they don't like
Oh,
not even
cool.
game used, but just like I love the memory of like that player in that uniform
Mhm.
and what that meant. Like I can recall like specific plays or
Cool.
like where I was watching that player. Jerseys for sure. I mean, I got like hats. There's like that endless collecting. I recently got into ticket stubs,
Okay, cool. Yeah.
and that's because I just as a kid I kept all of my stubs for everything. Like I was
Right.
just one of those things where you couldn't pry them from me. Like I would ask for like my parents' stubs and just because like I just wanted them and I threw them in a shoebox. And I mean now everything is digital. And
Right.
I feel
Yep.
like I
It's
just don't
hard. That's what I
have
was
that
gonna say.
anymore, like it's sitting in my digital wallet and I'm like this is like I wish I had more tangible stuff. So I mean
Yeah.
recently I've been like really kind of going backwards and trying to get my hands on more ticket subs of like moments that I remember watching
Yeah.
um because again like I'm just trying to preserve that history.
Yeah, it's for my 40th birthday, one of my good friends, Walt Williams, gave me the sweetest present ever. And he, out of the blue, just I arrived it in my mail. He framed a 1986 Mets ticket stub,
Love that.
World Series, but he also, it was a World Series stub, and then there was a ticket from when they were like pretty much out of contention. And then on the back of it, he's right, he wrote something about like, never get up, you never give up, you never know what's going to happen. And it was just like the coolest 40th birthday present I could ever ask for. And it's something I'll always cherish. And he has those ticket stubs. But you talking reminded me, I have a ton of hats because I always wear a hat.
Yes.
I have a ton of hat, like I have a hat collection for that. It's more curated of like what's going to look. I view it like I'm bald, so like I
Yeah.
view the hat as my hair.
Yeah.
So it's just like what looks good on me. And then I also have a ton of well, less so now. I used to collect a lot of sneakers, and I used to collect like every Jackie Robinson Nike that came out. Absolutely loved them, and Nike was even kind and sent me the Nike Griffey one year, and I had my old dog was named Griffey, so it was like
Wow.
sent me a Nike Griffey, and then they also sent me milk bones for Griffey,
I
and it
love
was the
that.
sweetest present ever. That's eternally grateful for that, but I stopped collecting the sneakers because honestly, I felt like the quality in the sneakers started to degrade like over the years. It's
Yeah.
not as good, and so stopped collecting those. But there's some sneakers like the new ones this year, the new Jackie Robinson Nikes, the '86 ones look gorgeous, so I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna get those. But
Yeah.
definitely collect sneakers a little bit.
I love how you said that you stopped collecting sneakers not because it was like getting too expensive, but because the quality diminished. Like I love that.
Quality.
That means you wear them. You know what I
I wear,
mean?
yeah, exactly. That's the thing
Yeah.
that drives like the
Yes.
collector. Not like
Yes.
there's a great video of somebody who has like some like bomb ass Jordans. Like they look amazing, but like he opens the shoe boxes and they're like all falling apart because he never wore them. And he's like, the lesson from this is wear your sneakers, right? And so I'll collect them. I'll get the, like I'll try to wear a little less if they're like
Yeah.
they're fashionable or high
Yeah.
end or
And,
whatever.
and
Like
as
I
long as
have
it's not raining, like
yeah, as long exactly right. Like
yeah.
I have one pair of AJ ones, and that one pair is like the fashion couture runs, and
Yeah.
they're not even that collectible anymore. They were when they came out, but like I've only worn those a handful of time, mainly because I don't find them that comfortable, but also because I know they're collectible. And so like there's certain ones that I don't think we've made a bunch of sneakers for the video games I worked on, and I have like samples from those, and so I still have some of those as like nostalgic stuff like that. But I tend to just stick to stuff that's portable because of my desire to
Yeah.
move a lot. But I do have some sneakers and things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the displayability and like being able to like storage like ability, as if that's even a word, but like is important, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of things that I think I'd probably have more of. Like, I mean, game used stuff. I think I'd go off if I had like the space and I knew that I was
Yeah.
going to be, in a designated area for a prolonged period of time. But it's a big commitment, like displaying your collectibles and because you want to like walk into a place and like actually experience them for like almost for the first time when you walk in, right?
Yeah, and that's the cool. Like I've seen, oh man, what's the place in Kentucky that has like the Tar Heels floor or something? It's a card shop. The Tops just did a video on them, and like how they have it displayed is it's awesome, right? Like that's my dream one day is like I'll have like my own little house space where I like man cave, whatever you want to call it, where I can just like display the stuff that means the most to me, right? And it's going to be very selective, right? There's going to be weird. It'll be dog pizza
I
boxes,
love that though, man.
that
That's
sort
a
of things, right? Like
that's
it'll be eclectic, but like that sort of thing. And like that pizza box probably costs what, like $1? It's cardboard or whatever, but it's like
probably.
it means so much to me, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I'll never forget. So,
And it's a story, right? Like, and
all
that's
right,
like, I mean, that's how
yeah,
we connect with other humans. That's how we connect with
yeah.
ourselves. Like, that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's where I mean, I guess when you asked that first question about why I collect like that, I've always been into story. Like that's my job is like being part of storytelling and that sort of thing. So I think when I really dig into it, like the stories behind these cards, like my dad used to tell me, oh yeah, I had mantle rookies, but you know what we did with them back in the day? We would put them between our bike tires and the spokes, and they would flap around and make noise, and it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, you put a mantle rookie between your bike tires? But it's perspective, right? Like it's that sort of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I didn't know at the time it was going to be worth anything. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. So, I love that. I love that about like the preserving that history and those stories is critical for just connecting. So
Yeah. I mean, and then you end up in situations like this where, like, I mean, us two are connecting and people are
yeah,
going to listen to this, and, maybe they're going to reignite a flame that they had in terms of collecting niche items like yours, like maybe they're going to, these conversations are going to spark, potentially some sort of like internal dialogue where you're like, I wonder like really what fulfills me. Like, what do I like? Maybe I want to like gloves or
yeah,
whatever, right? Like
whatever
anything.
you like.
So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
exactly it.
it's funny. I remember you said rubber ducky collection, and I was like, I remember Bert and Ernie. Like Bert had a paper clip collection, Ernie had a ducky collection, and then there's that Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. And I don't know if you've ever listened to that album, but
Oh,
okay, this is great. So it's actually a very heartwarming thing. So like they're trying to get each other Christmas gifts, and so Bert actually goes to this shop owner, turns in his paperclip collection to get a gift, a tray for Ernie's rubber ducky, right? And Ernie goes to the same shop over, turns in his rubber ducky collection to get some rare paperclip for Bert. So now Bert doesn't have his paperclip collection, Ernie doesn't have his rubber ducky, but they have something that means something because they know each other so well. And then they give each other presents. They're like, "Oh, this is great," but I turned that in. But then the shop owner, Mr. Hooper, comes back and gives them everything back. And like that little story and that little vignette of like everything is like that's what these stories and collection and passing things down. It really kind of like a heartwarming way to sum it all up. So
I
yeah.
love that. And I think that's a wonderful way to kind of conclude things, man. Before we get going though, I want you to, I don't know, I want you to plug, I want you to talk about, where people can find you, maybe
Sure.
what can they look forward to from yourself and Marvel Games moving forward? And
Yep.
yeah, man.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I mean, if you want to look for me, I spend most of my time. I'm not as active on social as I used to be, but I have a Twitter account. I refuse to call it X.
Yes, me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
it's Twitter. It's Twitter. It's ER Monicelli. So my last name's Monacella. And that's my Twitter account. That's like where I talk about baseball and my games and things
Love
like
it.
that. Instagram is just my whole name, Eric Monicelli, and then LinkedIn if you want to talk professional stuff, my whole name as well. And that's I'm more than willing to talk to anybody. I love sharing stories, and if I have time, I'll try and make time for you if there's a relevant conversation to be had. But I think in terms of my work and what we're looking forward to, I have best in class developers I'm working with, best in class creatives. We're just going to continue to make amazing Marvel games, and hopefully everybody will love it and play for it. And I can't wait to see how people respond to those.
Love
And
it.
then in terms of collecting, if that Trout 101 is out there, and
Yes.
if they're willing to sell
Yes.
that back, I'd love to talk to that person again. I don't
20,
think
2013, one of one. What kind of trout were you
five,
looking
yeah, it was a 101, 2013 5-star. It was the booklet. It was the Patch autograph booklet. So it's a big booklet, big long booklet. I think it's down in Florida somewhere. But if anybody sees that surface, I've been looking for that card. And then the other one I've been looking for forever is there's a 2019 triple threads, and it's Ken Griffey Jr., Willie Mays, and Mike Trout. Beautiful image, beautiful card. I want the one. There's three of them, and they got the blue background. I want the out of three, and I almost bought an out of three years ago. I think 2019 when the cards came out. I almost bought it, and I just didn't pull the trigger, and I've been kicking myself since. So if anybody's got that, I'd love to have a conversation about that. But or if you just want to talk about any cards, like I collect. My main people I collect are Otani, Trout, select Mets. I'm very moody about my Mets because they're my team. But I have a soft spot for Lindor and Degrom, and then I also Jackie Robinson cards that I really want to build up my Jackie Robinson collection. I've been trying to for a while, but his cards are really pricey sometimes. So yeah,
Yeah, I know. I know.
that's the one. But yeah, so yeah, I'd love to have those conversations, and yeah, just find me and hope we can talk.
I love it. Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Cardboard Coach featuring Eric Monticelli. I want you guys to have a wonderful rest of the evening. Please go give him a follow and find that one-of-one trout for him, please. For now, Coach Co and Eric are out of here. Peace.